A dual-screen gaming notebook sounds like a smart idea at first. Who wouldn't want another display to keep an eye on Twitch streams and Discord chats? But is it worth taking a gamble on unproven tech? That's what I've been asking myself as I've tested out HP's Omen X 2S, the company's first notebook with 2 screens. It certainly looks intriguing at first, but it's clear HP still has plenty of work left to do to make the extra display worth it. Now let's be clear, I'm not putting down the idea of dual-screen laptops in general. At Computex this year, we saw the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo and Intel's Concept gaming notebooks, both of which look unlike anything we've ever seen before. But those devices all feature large secondary screens, which make them far more useful for multitasking. The Omen X 2S has a relatively small 6-inch touchscreen display nestled above its keyboard. That really limits how much you can do with it. It's more reminiscent of Asus's touchscreen touchpad from last year. What's surprising is that the Omen X 2S looks like it actually has a decently sized secondary screen at first. There's a large glass panel right below the main 15.6-inch display, as if HP was planning to include something much wider, but had to settle for something smaller. The result isn't as futuristic as I'd like. Plus, it's not the first gaming laptop to include a second display. Razer shoved one into its first Blade notebook back in 2011. That tiny display is exactly what it sounds like. It's just another screen in Windows, so you can drag over anything from the main display. It's ideal for throwing up a YouTube video or keeping an eye on a group chat as you work. A button above the touchpad lets you quickly move windows back and forth between the displays, and you can also turn the smaller one into a simple number pad. Beyond that, there aren't any built-in apps like Asus's Screen Pad, but the simplicity makes it much easier to use. You can also have the small screen mirror portions of the main display in real time, which could be useful for strategy games and slower paced titles. It doesn't really help much in an FPS like Overwatch though. Most developers spend a lot of time optimizing exactly how their game interfaces are laid out, so that you don't have to take your eyes off the action. Looking down at a completely different screen ended up hurting my performance in Overwatch, even though it was sort of nice to have a zoomed in view of my cooldown timers. The Omen X 2S's tiny screen was more useful for basic multitasking than it was for actual gameplay. I appreciated being able to have a Twitch stream playing in the background while I jumped into a long Destiny or Overwatch session. You can interact with the small touchscreen while you're playing a game, but only if you're playing it in some sort of windowed mode. If you go full screen, the laptop shuts off the touch controls. The thing is, nothing about the Omen X 2S's small screen feels essential, especially when your phone can do most of the same things. Sure, you can't easily drag over windows, but it's a better interface for navigating through Twitch, YouTube, and Discord channels. And if you're annoyed by using a smaller phone display for multitasking, you could just as easily pick up a tablet. Actually, that would be a much smarter investment. When it comes to actually playing games, the Omen X 2S is a powerful beast. Our unit featured NVIDIA's RTX 2080 Max-Q GPU and Intel's 6-core i7-9750H CPU. And not surprisingly, that hardware was more than enough to make games perform well and look great on the 1080p 144Hz G-Sync screen. In Overwatch, I saw between 90 and 110 FPS with epic settings, while the Hitman 2 benchmark reached 102 FPS with all the graphics turned up. You can also choose from a faster 240Hz 1080p screen for an additional $230, like we're seeing on other gaming laptops this year. As you'd expect, all that power generates plenty of heat. I typically saw CPU temperatures of 70 to 80 Celsius under load, but during some benchmarks that skyrocketed to 92 Celsius. That's surprising since HP used a liquid metal thermal compound on the CPU, which is supposed to help with offloading heat. The GPU meanwhile sat between 60 and 72 degrees as I was playing games. Clearly, the Omen X 2S is a solid performer, but it also proves HP is getting better at making attractive gaming laptops. It's only 20mm thick and weighs 5.2 pounds. That's heavier than some of the competition, which are closer to 4.5 pounds, but it's still pretty portable. Its metal case is sleek, even though it's not as refined as something like the Razer Blade. You definitely won't mistake this for a typical PC. All of its LED lighting and sharp angles show that it's a gaming notebook through and through. To fit in its secondary display, HP had to make a few compromises. The Omen X 2S's keyboard is way up front, along with a surprisingly short trackpad. The keyboard feels fantastic for both gaming and typing, but you'll definitely need to use the bundled wrist rest to avoid cramping your hands. And while the touchpad is smooth and accurate, I wish it was a bit taller for multi-touch gestures. It looks like it was cut short to make room for some extra keys to control the laptop's tiny display. That makes it less useful as a productivity device, but it probably won't matter much if you're always relying on a gaming mouse. HP also included a wealth of ports, including 3 USB 3.0 Type-A connections, a Thunderbolt USB-C port, Ethernet, and a full-size HDMI connection. As for future upgrades, you can get under the hood to easily replace its SSD and memory. The power adapter also seems thoughtfully designed, with rounded edges and a slim enclosure. You'll want to keep that handy because the Omen X 2S won't last you very long in battery power. With the secondary display turned on, it only lasted 2.5 hours during our test, and with that screen turned off, it got closer to 3 hours. The Omen X 2S starts at $1,800, but if you want something as fast as our review unit with the RTX 2080, you'll have to shell out $2,850. That's only $50 more than the Razer Blade with similar hardware, but that machine is also far sleeker. I will say this though, compared to some of the other gimmicky gaming laptops we've seen this year, this gimmick is actually kinda useful. Having a second screen is definitely better than the Triton 900's expensive swiveling display, and it costs a lot less than the Alienware Area 51M, which offers desktop-like customizability. But that's really not saying much. Unless you absolutely need another screen, you'd likely be better off with any other slim gaming notebook, which will get you better battery life and shed a few pounds in the process. Based on the concepts we're seeing from Asus and Intel, I'm convinced the future of laptops is dual screen. They're the sort of leap forward we've been waiting for after laptops have been kind of boring for a while. But as usual, it's not a good idea to jump into the first wave of any new technology. The Omen X 2S is an admirable effort from HP, but it feels like the company is still trying to get the hang of things. There's clearly room to fit in a larger and wider display. Maybe next year, HP can actually figure out how to make that happen. Check out Engadget.com for more gaming laptop reviews, and if you dug this video, like it and subscribe to our channel.